President, please be seated. The court is now in session. The chamber gives now the floor to the deputy co-prosecutor to resume the questioning to the witness. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. We were talking about the issue of Vietnamese soldiers who may have been captured in battle. Did you ever hear broadcasts on the Democratic Kampuchea radio of confessions of Vietnamese soldiers who had been captured?
During the time, there were no radios for us to tune in. Therefore, we did not learn any information in relation to situation in various locations.
I want to ask you about another broadcast that was recorded from the Democratic Kampuchea radio from Phnom Penh on the 13th of October 1978. The caption is Results of 16 to 30 September Military Successes Against SRV, the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. The site is E3/294 English 00170-239, and there are no translations presently available. Let me read to you what was broadcast on the radio that day. Quote, recently, the Vietnamese enemies again sent their armed forces to openly intrude into our Kampuchean territory in the Svai Ring border areas, but they were again shamefully defeated. Following our facts and figures recorded from 16 to September 1978, our Revolutionary Armed Forces killed 422 and captured a large number of Vietnamese troopers, seized 11 B-40s, 6 B-41s, 3 M79s, 128 M72s, 3 60-millimeter mortars, a DK-82, 3 DK-75s, and so on and so on. Lists a number of items, weaponry that had been recovered. My question to you is, were reports prepared either by yourself or T. Poussey regarding the results of combat on the battlefield that were provided to Ren, the division commander? In other words, did your division report to Ren on the specific results of combat in the battlefield?
Regarding the pronouncement of the victory broadcast by the radio of the DK, we in fact did not receive any information over the radio, since we did not have radio to listen to, as I stated. Concerning the reports to the upper echelon, we rarely made the report to the up the line, since there were no specific fightings or combats. at the border. However, we would report about the lack of weapons and explosives.
Were there any occasions where your division was able to recover weapons or ammunition, to seize weapons or ammunition from the Vietnamese?
My soldiers never seized any weapon or ammunition from Vietnam because we were there to prevent the attack by those people.
And in regards to Ren, the commander of the consolidated divisions, do you know whether he reported to leaders in Phnom Penh? Do you know whether he would go to Phnom Penh for meetings?
I could not grasp the situation. Perhaps they may have such information, and it was within their scope of business. And for me, I was never told of that.
Let me read to you testimony that came from the commander of Intervention Brigade 221, whose statement I provided to you earlier today. This is 2 TCW 1046 for the court and parties. OCIJ statement E3/419, E3/419 at answer 12. This is what the former commander of Division 221 had to say. Quote, Ren made announcements during meetings about treason by East Zone cadres, saying that this person had been arrested or that person was sent to upper echelon, and others had fled to Vietnam. At that time, there were no more East Zone cadres, so the meetings primarily focused on strategy to counter and fight Vietnam. I knew that Ren frequently went up to meetings in Phnom Penh, since he wrote documents telling me that he was going to Phnom Penh for meetings and requesting that those at the base area master the battlefield with vigilance. Going to Phnom Penh for meetings certainly meant meetings with Pol Pot and Son Sen. And then continuing in answer 13, after returning from Phnom Penh, Ren always called all brigade division commanders to meetings to tell them what he had participated in while he was in Phnom Penh. End of quote. Does that refresh your memory at all? Mr. Witness, did you ever attend any meetings where Ren reported on instructions from Phnom Penh, or did T. Pusey ever report back on such meetings with Ren?
I never participated in the meetings convened by Ren. T. Pusey was the commander or chief. He may have participated in the meetings, and I have never heard about the arrests of East Zone cadres. We were busy with arranging our forces to counter and prevent the Vietnam from entering into the country. I have never received any information about the treason committed by the East Zone cadres. I was there, and I was simply an ordinary soldier. It was beyond my knowledge. It was within the business of the upper echelon.
With regards to information on what was going on in the battlefield being reported to Phnom Penh, let me ask you about another piece of evidence in the case. This is document E3/3751. E3/3751. It's a 3 January 1979 AP report titled "Russians Back Aggression by Hanoi, Cambodia Says." And it reported as follows. Cambodia charged yesterday that Vietnamese forces penetrated deep into its eastern territory, and political analysts here confirm that Hanoi-backed rebels grabbed control of a key Mekong River town. President Khieu Samphan accused the Soviet Union of backing the Vietnamese aggression and said that since Christmas Day, Vietnamese infantry, armor, and warplanes had penetrated deep into areas of eastern Cambodia. President Khieu Samphan said the major Vietnamese attacks have come in Ratanakiri and Kratchi provinces and along Highway 7, which leads to another key Mekong River town, Kampong Cham. Reliable sources in Bangkok confirmed that the major Mekong River town of Kratchi had been seized. Mr. Khieu Samphan said yesterday nearly 10,000 Vietnamese troops had been killed or wounded in Cambodia in the last 3 months of 1978. End of quote. My question, first question to you about this, Mr. Witness, we've talked about a large offensive that was mounted by the Vietnamese in late 78. Do you remember whether it was on the 25th of December 1978 that this large offensive from the Vietnamese forces began? Does that date ring a bell?
I did not recall the exact month of which year. I could not say whether it was in late 1978 or early 1979. It was a large offensive at Svai Rieng, and at the time soldiers did not listen to one another, and they did not know who there were commanders. We were playing for our lives. We did not have any forces or soldiers to counter the attack. There were no reinforcing soldiers to assist us. We was running for lives.
Do you remember how long was it after this large offensive began that your troops began retreating? How many days or how many hours after the offensive did your forces begin to retreat?
We were defeated from that time onwards. We could not gather forces from that time onwards. Some went to their villages to have a gathering with their parents. We were defeated, and we were there and prayed for our lives. We were defeated. We could not do anything.
And where did you go, or what did you do at the time that Vietnamese forces broke through your lines.
I went to hide myself close to my house to save my life. I did not dare to go back into the village, but I was there around the village. I did not take any actions. I was there idle. We had no forces to assist us, to reinforce us. We did not know where our leaders or commanders were. We were seeking the refuge to save our lives.
And when you say you went to your house in your village, specifically which...
President, please hold on.
Je suis désolée.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Prosecutor, but after asking the people around me, I think that there is a sound in the headsets, especially in the French and perhaps even the English languages. So I don't know if we can try to solve this problem while continuing, but everyone on this side is having the same issue.
I'm not having any issue here. There's some static in the background, but it's not loud.
Le problème a priori est réglé.
The problem seems to be solved. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, you may now resume your questioning, Mr. Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question, you indicated that when the Vietnamese forces broke through, you went to hide in your house in the village. Are you talking about a place in Svai Ring, or where is it that you went to hide?
When I was defeated, I returned to my village in Kampong Speu, close to Aural. That was my birthplace. I was there hiding.
Now, you told us a few minutes ago that that you never heard of any arrests of the East Zone cadres. Were there, during the 6 months that you were engaged in the combat in Svai Ring, were there any soldiers in your division, Division 340, who were arrested or who were sent away to Phnom Penh?
Soldiers who were assigned to perform duties at Svai Rieng as a commander. As I was in the leadership, I never asked to arrest anyone.
I understand that you wouldn't or didn't ask to have anyone arrested. My question, were there some soldiers from Division 340 who were arrested or sent away to Phnom Penh during those 6 months?
In the course of 6 months within my division, no one was arrested and sent to Phnom Penh.
The reason I ask, Mr. Witness, is the Office of Co-Investigating Judges have done an S-21 list This is document E3/10604. And it contains 16 combatants from Division 340 who were sent to S-21 between the 24th of July, 1978 and the 1st of January, 1979. Your Honors, just for the record, those 16 Division 340 soldiers are numbers 1044, 4171, 5208, 5858, 7909, 8286, 9562, 12,007 through 12,008, 12,549, number 12,551, number 12,559, 12,840 through 841, 14,057, and number 14,194. And with your leave, Mr. President, I'd like to present one of the underlying records to the witness, identifying it's one of the records is document E3/10205, E3/10205, which contains a list of 9 people from Division 340 who were sent to S-21 in October. With your leave, may I provide that to the witness?
President, yes. Greffier, please bring the documents to the witness. Court officer, please bring the document to the witness for examination.
If you look at this document, it's only in Khmer, but the relevant references are on pages Khmer 01016474 through 6475. I've highlighted the references for you, Mr. Witness. As I said, there is a total of 9 people listed from Division 340. I want to ask if you remember any of the names of these people, if you recognize any of them. And in particular, the last person, number 9 on the list, is Rot Hon, who's identified as a battalion secretary in Division 340, who entered S-21 on 26 October 1978. Do you remember that battalion secretary, and does this refresh your memory? What can you tell this court about how these combatants from Division 340 ended up at S-21?
The 9 names or individuals from 340 were not known by me. I do not know them. Back then, I did not hear of a place or prison. I never knew the existence of it. I did not know the 9 individuals.
And do you have any memory of some of the soldiers in your unit being called away in October 1978?
In October, I never knew about the invitation to that location, and I never knew about the arrests or disappearances. Takoi, for example, if he had been arrested or he had been to anywhere, I would have learned about information. I would have learned that some people had been sent for re-education or for meetings. I never knew about that information. I never know. I never learned of it.
It may have been a translation issue. In English, you made a reference to a person, Takoi. Who was Takoi?
I never knew the person by the name Kuyokoi. There was no one named Kuyokoi.
It was probably an interpretation issue. In English, it was something you said was translated Takoi. Let me turn to my next subject. Did you know you were from the West Zone, you worked in the West Zone. Did you know a site in the West Zone where the Kampong Chenang Airport was being constructed during 1977 and 1978?
For the airport or the airfield which was being built, or the newly built airfield, I did not know. I heard that there was a plan to build a new airfield. I heard of it, but I did not go there and see it myself.
Were you aware of any soldiers, either from your regiment when you were in the West Zone or from your division when you were in Svay Ring? Were you aware of any soldiers who were sent to that place to work on the construction of the airport?
For soldiers, my soldiers, they were not sent to build the airfield in Kampong Chenang.
Let me ask you about some testimony that has come from the regiment commander in Division 703, who I've asked you about before. This is OCIJ statement E3 421, E3/421, answer number 2. This witness says as follows, quote, Son Sen went to Svay Ring and conducted a meeting for all commanders, and he then identifies the Battalion 221 commander and deputy. I won't repeat their names right now. Continuing, Son Sen announced that, and he quotes, all soldiers removed from the east must be sent to build the airport in Kampong Chenang, while their commanders must be arrested and sent to S21. End of quote. Aside from the people in your division, did you hear of other soldiers who were in the East Zone while you were there being sent to the Kampong Chenang airport site?
Allow me to clarify, and so everybody is clear. My unit who came to fight against the junta at the border it seems that we were fully separated from the rear, and we only focus on defending our position. As for the moving or the transferring of people, we were not allowed to be known to know by the upper echelon. We minded our business and we did not know about other people's business.
While you were in combat, how did you communicate with your superiors? Did you have radios to communicate with either Tipu Se or Ren while you were in combat?
Regarding the communication to the upper level, we did not have it because Tipu Se and I were on the ground and we made every evening. We rarely use radio communication, and also we did not have a proper setup for radio communication. As for a normal radio, I did not even have one. So I did not receive any news or information from them.
What about the regiment or battalion chiefs that were fighting for you in your unit? How did they communicate with you while in combat? Did they use messengers? Did they have radios?
The military headquarters was close to the battlefield. It was located only about 100 meters from where we positioned ourselves. And usually I deployed messengers to call those military commanders for meeting, and after that they would go back to their respective units. We did not use a radio or use any telephone. We only use messengers.
Thank you. That is clear now. I want to now move back to some of the events while you were in the West Zone in Division 1. You've talked this morning a little bit about the June 1978 meeting, which you've described, at which Pol Pot spoke about marriages, among other matters. That June 78 meeting, was that the annual West Zone Congress, or was it some other meeting?
As I stated from the outset, I was in the military, and I actually did not participate in the meeting itself, but we were invited to receive the news and information during the meeting. And Pol Pot raised two important topics. One was to defend the country, and second was to build the country. But I did not know whether it was an annual meeting.
Well, in answer number 40 of your September 2015 interview, E3/10/713, you were asked question referring to meetings you attended in Kampong Chenang province. Were they held regularly? Your answer, quote, that kind of meeting was held annually, end of quote. Mr. Witness, as someone who was a regiment commander in the West Zone military, were you not aware of the annual West Zone Congress that was held for all cadres, civilian and military?
Yes, that's what they did. However, sometimes the military personnel were on missions, so they could not attend. It was not mandatory for the military because that kind of a meeting was for administrative purpose and not for the military.
What kind of missions would you be on that would excuse you from attending? The reason I ask is you testified yesterday, I believe, and before, that up until June 1978, all you did was farming. So what type of missions were you engaged in that prevented you from going to the annual zone congresses?
I was not invited. I was not told about it. Only if I were invited, then I would go. If not, how could I?
Let me read to you an excerpt from the OCJ interview of a person I referred to at the start of my questions, Mia Bun, who was the commander of Regiment 16 in your division, West Zone Division 1, and the deputy commander of the division. In his interview, E3/80, E380 at answer 14, quote, I attended the Congress of the West Zone in Kampong Spu province held at a coconut plantation in Chabar Mon district in 1977, but I do not recall the exact date. The participants were comprised of the zone committee, the sector committees, the committees of all the districts, the chairman and deputy chairman of the divisions and regiments in the West Zone. End of quote. Do you remember meetings that were held at coconut plantation at Chabar Mon?
I never attended any meeting there.
Did you know what office was located at the coconut plantation in Chabar Mon?
I did not have a clue about it. I did not know if there were any offices there. As I said, I only knew about my duties. And as for soldiers at the front battlefield, our main task was to shoot at the enemy.
Again, we're talking now about zone congresses before you were sent off into combat in June 78, a period you've said that you were engaged in farming. So you've talked about political education training that you received. We've heard from other former cadres in this court about annual political education. Did you participate in annual political education sessions? And if so, where was that political education conducted?
Worked in the rice field. For that reason, sometimes I did not attend a meeting. So I did not attend any political study. The division actually instructed us to engage in rice farming to sustain ourselves. And we were told also to be vigilant. That was all.
Well, let me get some clarification then on something you said in your more recent OCIJ interview from September 2015. This is again E3/10-713 at answer 62. You said the following, quote, I was a regiment commander. I worked under the division commanded by Tasung. Therefore, Tasung was in charge of all the meetings and training. Sometimes I saw another person, Tamok, come to supervise the meetings and training. End of quote. What meetings and training were you referring to in this answer?
Regarding the study sessions, we were told to look after the troops, and that the troops has to know how to look after their weapons, and that I should make sure that the soldiers had sufficient food to eat.
Where did these study sessions take place that were conducted by Tasung and at which Tamok sometimes came?
I cannot recall the locations. I cannot recall the actual locations.
And what did Tamok do when he came to these meetings?
Traditionally, Tamok did not give any presentation. He only came to ask how the soldiers were doing and whether they had enough to eat.
How did you know that the person who came was Tamok?
Because I heard people referring him as Tamok.
Okay, let me turn again to some more specifics about the June 1978 meeting at which Pol Pot spoke. This morning, you told Q Sampan's counsel that you were only present for the first day of that meeting before you were sent off to go to Svay Ring. But you've said something different about the time you were there in some of your earlier statements. So let me seek some clarification from you. In your 2015 OCIJ interview, and I'm reading from answers 60 to answer 61 of E3/10-713, you said the following, quote, I only attended the meeting for 2 or 3 days. And then the investigator asks you, question, this morning you said that you attended the meeting for just 1 day. Why do you now say that you attended the meeting for 2 or 3 days? Answer, I would like to clarify that I attended the meeting for 3 days. End of quote. I realize it was a long time ago, Mr. Witness. Can you clarify for us whether you were at the Pol Pot meeting for 1 day or for 3 days, or are you not sure how many days you were there?
I cannot recall for sure. I think the longest would be 2 days, and it would not be 3 days, because after I received the plan, I had to leave. And frankly speaking, I cannot recall the actual number of days that the meeting lasted.
And during the 1 or 2 days that you were present at this June 1978 meeting, were there any speakers other than Pol Pot, or was Pol Pot the only one who spoke during those days?
During the 1 or 2 day meeting that I attended, I only saw Pol Pot who made the speech.
And approximately how many people were at this meeting, and who were they? Who were the people who were invited to this meeting?
There were many participants. It could be into hundreds, although I did not know where they came from. As I said, I was on the military side. I was there to observe the meeting, and we were not the core participants of the meeting. And I hope you are clear on this point. So we did not have a full content of the meeting.
You just referred to core participants. By core participants, are you referring to the people on the civilian side, that is, the people from the district and commune committees?
Important people that I spoke about, I did not know them at all. However, they were leaders from the bases.
And now we talked a little bit about the issue of what Pol Pot instructed at this meeting regarding marriages. I want to ask you a few general questions about marriages. During the Democratic Kampuchea regime, either before or after this meeting with Pol Pot, were people allowed to get married in traditional weddings with Buddhist religious ceremonies?
Regarding family building, through my knowledge, it was not organized according to the tradition, and it was indeed organized according to the way that I described this morning.
Let me read to you and ask you about something you said in your 2015 interview, E3 10713, at answer 37. You said, I quote, and you're talking here about the meeting with Pol Pot. As far as I remember at the meeting, Pol Pot did not state that religious weddings were to be prohibited. They just called the couples to hold hands, and then the wedding was finished. Pol Pot did not talk about weddings of multiple couples. And then continuing in the next questions and answers, answers 38 and answer 39. Question: did they issue orders telling you to stop permitting rituals or religious ceremonies? No, they did not. Question: then why did they stop conducting rituals or religious ceremonies that era? Answer: because there were no pagodas or monks. End of quote. Mr. Witness, why is it that there were no pagodas and monks during the democratic Kampuchea regime?
I myself did not know, nor did I understand about that. I was an ordinary person. I was not a leader, so I could not know about their leading policy. I just simply followed what I was told.
Well, let me read to you some testimony that came from another person who was in the military like yourself. A person you've identified as the deputy commander of Brigade 221, who was sent from the Southwest Zone at the same time you were sent to Spy Ring. In his OCIJ statement E3-428, E3/428, Khmer 00373-488, English 00374-952, and French 00485-479. This is what he said on this subject. Question: when I first began participating in the Khmer Rouge movement in early 1970, they taught me about the communists' theory that said there was no benefit to Buddhism in making national progress, so it had to be eliminated. At that time, books were printed and distributed, the substance of which was about eliminating religion. Later on, I saw that there were no pagodas, and all the monks had been disrobed or had left the monkhood. End of quote. Did you receive similar training, political training, after you joined the CPK regarding the elimination of religion?
After I joined the military, in my unit, we never heard about the elimination of religion at all. The discussion was to join our hands to defend our country and to do what we needed to do in order for some Daisiano to return to the country. But I never heard about the elimination of pagodas. President, Deputy Co-Prosecutor, did you discuss with the elite co-lawyers regarding the sharing of time?
Yes, Mr. President. I understand that we have up to, if we need, I'm not sure we'll need it, but up to the half hour of the next session. And I've discussed that she has maybe 15 minutes or less. So.
I think you are mistaken because I already compensated the time during lunchtime that the session lasted until a quarter to 12, and that your time will actually expire at the end of this first afternoon session.
Thank you for that clarification. Counsel advised she has no questions, so I'll use that remaining time then. Mr. Witness, I want to ask you about a document that's in evidence in this case. It is a report from the West Zone, and it contains some information related to the subjects we've been discussing. Mr. President, with your leave, I'd like to provide to the witness document E3/1094, E3/1094.
Yes, you can do so.
Now, I understand, Mr. Witness, that this is a report that was sent from the West Zone to Onkar, a monthly report for July, and I realize you would not have seen this yourself, but there are some references in here that I want to ask you about. First reference, if you could look at section 4.1, I've put a post-it there. And let me provide the ERNs, Your Honors. The ERNs for section 4.1 of the report are Khmer 00143-611 through 12, English 00315-376, and French 00593-532. And what I particularly wanted to ask you about is a reference in the middle of the second paragraph. They're talking here about education sessions that were conducted of cadres from all the sectors. And they talk about documents which the party had used to educate us in June in the first semester of 1978. This reference to an education meeting in June 1978, is that the same meeting that you attended at least the first 2 days of?
I myself cannot say whether that what you read was the content of that series or the number of days of meeting. As I said, I attended only for the 2 days period, and then I left.
If you could turn to the back page, the very last page of this report, there's a number of charts in which information is reported. So the very last page at the very back of the document, if you look at that, you'll find a chart that is titled Birth, Death, and Marriage. Do you see that? You need to look at the very, yes, on the back there. In this report from the West Zone, there is a chart in which both the number of births and the number of couples married is reported. My question to you is, were your units, Mr. Witness, required to report to your upper echelon on the number of couples who were married?
As I stated earlier, in fact, the weddings were arranged after we already sought approval from the upper echelon, so there was no need to make any further report.
Well, let me read to you what you said in your September 2015 interview, E3/10/713, answer 30. You were asked, question, how could they increase the population if they did not have a clear policy? Answer, for example, in my unit, I had to report the number of couples to the upper echelons. Other units did the same. How is it that you reported to your upper echelon the number of couples who were married each month?
Regarding the reports, before the wedding, the certain number of couples were requested to the upper echelon, and then we did not report any other matters up the line since we already put in our report.
And if you could turn to another page in the document that I've marked with a Post-it, and the reference here, Your Honors, this is again in the same document, E3/1094. Actually, let me start, before we get to that reference, if you could look first at the first page of this report, the very first page, section 1.2, which I've also highlighted for you. It's the section on the first page titled The Activities of the Hidden Enemy Burrowing from Within. And the specific references in the first paragraph, there's a reference to screening out from various units and military, including elements of the 17 April, including former civil servants and some Chinese and Yuan aliens. And in the next paragraph, the last sentence of the next paragraph states, I quote, "We have had plans in place to apply the party's assignment line to routinely remove, screen, and sweep clean them." End of quote. At the June 78 meeting you attended, was there discussion of enemies of the regime?
Regarding the meetings in Kampong Chnam, when I was in Svay Rieng, in fact, the meeting lasted for 2 days, 1 or 2 days, and back then I had been transferred already to Svay Rieng, so I did not know about the discussion in relation to enemy.
I'm asking you about the 2 days, 1 or 2 days that you attended where Pol Pot spoke. Was there discussion about enemies during those 1 or 2 days?
I was in the meeting for 1 or 2 days. There was a lot of issue discussed at the time, and I had already left. After the 2 days, I did not know what subjects were discussed after I had left.
Well, let me remind you of what you said when you testified back in 2013 in this courtroom. This is your testimony from 24 April 2013, E1 183.1. At 11:18, you said, I quote, "Internal enemies were raised in the meeting." And at 11:12, you said the following. Do you remember in more do you remember in more detail the things that Pol Pot said about foreign aggressors? Answer: in 1978, people gathered in the meeting, people from different ranks, lower ranks and higher ranks, and we were lectured on how to be cautious regarding these spies, KGB agents, and CIA agents. We were asked to be vigilant, that we had to make sure these people could not infiltrate in our system. Does that refresh your memory? Do you remember these subjects being discussed by Pol Pot at the June 1978 meeting?
I did not remember it.
Okay, the last thing I want to ask you about, if you could now turn to that page that I have the post-it on, Your Honors, for the record, this is Khmer page 00143-610, English 00315-374-75, and French 00593-530. Again of E3 1094. This is in a section of the report for Sector 37 titled About the Screening of UN Elements, CIA Agents, and the Not Good Elements. And the following was reported for that month. Number 1, smashed 100 ethnic UNs, including small and big adults and children. Number 2, smashed 60 persons who had been from the ranking group, as well as the CIA of the American imperialists who were hiding in the units and cooperatives. Number 3, within the sector military unit, 40 Chinese combatants were screened out and sent to the production unit. End of quote. This is a report for the activities of the sectors in the West Zone for July 1978, which was the month following the June 78 meeting with Pol Pot. My question to you, whether at this meeting with Pol Pot or elsewhere, did you hear of a policy of the regime with regards to Vietnamese people who remained in the country?
Concerning the smashing of certain number of those people, I did not receive any plan about the smash, about how many enemies of UN to be smashed or how many Chinese to be smashed. I did not receive any instruction or information about the number of Vietnamese and Chinese to be smashed.
And my last question, Mr. Witness, the excerpt I just read from this report refers to Chinese combatants within the sector military unit. Were you aware of Chinese combatants within either the sector or zone military divisions in the West Zone? And if you are, could you explain who these people were?
Let me clarify it once again. I was part of the West Zone Army. The army of the sector and the zone were under different commanders. The zone leader never told me about the Chinese within the zone army. I was not aware of it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you. It is now time for break. The chamber will take break from now until 5 to 3. Court officer, please assist the witness in the waiting room during the break time, and please invite him back into the courtroom with the duty counsel at 5 to 3. The court is now in recess.